Hey, you. Why haven't you subscribed yet? Hit the subscribe button and the bell. Enjoy the video.
After further review, our weekly talk with Mike Detillier is brought to you by the one and only New Orleans original, Cesarac Rye Whiskey.
I'm Mike D, and I get respect.
And I stick you the middle finger football-wise and say, okay, cover them.
Hour 2. Off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. I'm Matt.
I appreciate it, bud. Have a good one.
Joseph Rodriguez.
Hey, Joe, what you doing?
The Brain.
Hey, the brain got a poop.
We're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there. Make it a good one. As always, thrilled to be joined by football analyst Mike Detillier, SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com, Saints News Network over at SI.com, and with us here each Thursday. Mike D, thanks for the time as always. How are you?
I appreciate it. Thank you, Matt. I'm doing good.
Mike, Saints win. They beat the Tampa Bay or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Reaction, takeaways from week one?
It wasn't what all of us thought.
The shootout?
It was a shootout, and that part I thought would happen, but all season long, when the schedule came out, it looked to be, Brady and Breeze, they would be the headliners. Wasn't the case. It was the Saints defense and their special teams that won it. Bottom line, I mean, you look how well that defense played, after the first series. They did a tremendous job. They slowed down the rushing game of the Bucs. And they wanted to run the football. They wanted to do that early. And the Saints were able to slow that down. They threw Brady a little bit off kilter. And you saw with this collection of stars, you got to play together as a team. You just can't throw them out there. This isn't a light switch and you flip on and off. It doesn't work that way. And so it was interesting to watch Brady hussing and cussing because he was doing a lot of it. You could tell the frustration that built in with him that, what's happening out here? And again, another tremendous performance by Marshawn Lattimore. People don't realize, the shutouts he's pitched, so to speak, on Mike Evans, who's one of the elite receivers in this game, and just basically kind of taking him out of the lineup. So one thing that jumped out at me, it's the best secondary I've seen the Saints have. When you look at Jack Rabbit on one side, you look at Lattimore on the other, Marcus Williams, Malcolm Jenkins, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who I thought played a really strong game also. Didn't get a lot of ink for it, but I thought he really played well. Man, that was an impressive group. Matt, name me another secondary for the Saints that's better than what you've seen today.
Mike, if you were even going to have the conversation, you might look at last year, but no.
But they didn't have Jack Rabbit.
No doubt. They
didn't have Jack Rabbit.
Nope.
And the other part about it is another year under the belt for Chauncey, because you can see, he gets it. And this is the big reason why sometimes you see in the draft a guy that you think will go high, like with Gardner-Johnson. Man, and I had it. Him as a late first, early second round pick. The Saints trade up into round 4 to get him. That was a reason. Now, some coaches maybe didn't like his bravado. That don't bother Sean Payton at all. And he was open about how good he was. And again, not everybody's Watusi in this world. Listen, you dance to another beat. And so, he has been a great fit for this defense. You got good pressure. And without Shy Tuttle, you found yourself something. Malcolm Roach.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Malcolm played big up front. And I was impressed with him of how physical he was. His ability to get off the snap was really quick. And also, he wasn't a starter, but Carl Granderson, I'll tell you a story. It hasn't been covered, and I'm a little bit surprised with it. On our Monday night show with Sean Payton on the Coaches Show, brought up Carl Granderson to him, and he said, listen, I was in Philly, and I didn't have a lot of interaction with him. It was his last season there, but he said, his body type, Granderson, is similar to Richard Dent. And we all sort of looked at one another. Whoa. He said, listen, I'm not trying to compare talent. He said body type and explosiveness to Richard Dent. Man, you think about that run that Dent had with the Bears. He was one of the best pass rush defensive ends in the National Football League. And the fact that Sean was not comparing talents, but comparing some explosive traits and body types to Richard Dent, man, that to me was pretty impressive.
Mike, Granderson's nowhere near Dent in weight. Yeah, I mean I was a kid when Richard Dent played, but I mean Dent much bigger than Granderson. Yeah.
No. Let me tell you what happened to Dent, because Ditka told me this story.
Okay.
He said, Mike, when we picked him, he weighed about 232 pounds.
Oh wow.
He said he had a lot of dental problems, and he said once we got him here to Chicago, we were able to fix the dental problems. Man, he got to eating pretty good. So he said, listen, when you got problems, because he said, listen, it happened to me for a stretch. I had some dental problems, and he said, man, I lost a lot of weight. I couldn't keep it up. And he said with Richard, he never could pick it up. So he said when we picked him, he was 230, 235, and he said, he got up maybe 240, but he said he was in that range. Granderson was bigger than that coming into the league, and he got up to 270. I guess Dent played like 275. I would think that's similar to what Granderson is today.
Okay.
So there, it was interesting to hear him talk about body type, and he spoke about he had a tremendous training camp and his explosiveness and how much effort he gives to get better each and every day. I thought that sort of jumped out in the coaches show more than anything else that he said, that, again, it's not a comparison, talent to talent, but body type, explosiveness, that sort of thing. And so you seen Granderson come together as a player. Again, they're special teams. Man, I can't say enough about Thomas Morstead. He kept pinning them back. So Brady's like, what, I got to go 88 yards? I got to go 87 yards? I got to go 86 yards? Man, every punt, pow. Morstead's blasting them. How much yardage did they get in return?
0.
Zip. Nothing. And look what Deontay Harris did. Again, you looking at an area where the Saints have placed a lot of emphasis in the years, if it's been to go out and get a guy like Will Lutz. And I remember Sean coming on the Monday Night Show. I've never seen a better workout for a kicker. And Bobby's like, I wonder how many kickers he saw. Man, this guy, he just got cut. I was like, hey, man, I did see him in some of the preseason game. He's pretty good. And then, he came through. He had a low trajectory at first. That thing didn't get off the ground too high, but he worked at it and has become one of the better kickers, certainly in the National Football League. Morstead's the same way as a punter. Deontay Harris has been a huge impact as a return man. And what Justin Hardy does, man, he's a tremendous special teams player in those units. And then you pop that pooch kick up, and it's like the Bucs. No, you got it. Somebody better get it. The Saints end up recovering it. So, again, it was a cluster. And that has been an issue with the Buccaneers now for years. My old friend, God bless it, Gay Coverhouse, told me back in May, and we were had a conversation. She says if Arians don't fix that special teams, they're going to bust him out of the league. She said it's a problem that's long going on with the Buccaneers. And she said, they got 8 special teams coaches over there, and none of them must not know what to do, because every week there seems to be a screw-up. And then you get Marcus Hunt. Okay, he had that reputation at SMU, certainly in the NFL, and he comes right through, pow, and blocks the field goal, which sets up extra points. So, man, when you win in those phases, I thought about this. 5 years ago, the Saints wouldn't have won that game because their defense wasn't good enough, and their special teams, they've shown much more emphasis on developing that part of the game more than any other field. That's where they've really gotten better over the last 5 years on special teams. And I think it's a huge part of winning in this league. Mo Buddy Rich Marty says it all the time. It's a third of the game because he was a really good special teams player too. But I think, Matt, you saw it. The offense wasn't as crisp as we've seen it in the past. But man, you did what you had to do to win, and this is a team. And Coach Payton has brought this up numerous times about getting off to a fast start. And he says, I can't tell you why. But he gave, Aber and I and Zach a long litany of 06. We get off to a 3-1 start, and we end up going to the NFC Championship. The next 2 years, we get off to a real bad start. I think 1 year they were 0-4 to start the year. I think that was 07. And then in 08, I think they lost the first couple games. And then 09, you go 4-0, and you get to the Super Bowl, you end up winning it. And you got off to a fast start in 2010, too. Now, injuries caught up with you toward the end of the year on that football team. But he talked about, like 17, 18, 19, how, we saw it in 14, 15, 16. This team got off to a terrible start. They were 1-3. And just so much energy was spent, you never could catch up.
Yeah.
And his deal was, okay, what we do in 17, we start off 0-2. We lose to the Vikings and the Patriots. And he said, it runs through your mind, oh, here we go again. But he said, we were able to turn it around. I think, Matt, it's imperative, this football team, because it's shown in the record when they've gotten off to a fast start, it has mattered late in the year. Because I saw an article that, the month of September is getting off to a fast start is not really indicative of his team. No, it is. No, when the coach says it is, I know it is.
Yeah.
And you look at the records, and it starts out that way. So it was, other than the end to see Michael Thomas get rolled up, it was a good day. It was a good day, and to see what happened with the Bucs, because I do think while Saints players and coaches won't say it, this was a signature win for them. They had been hearing it all off season. Man, Brady, Gronkowski, best receivers in the National Football League. You pick up Fournette late. You got Shady McCoy. That, hey, now we the biggest dog in the yard now. And the team you're going to play the second game is going to be different than the one you played Sunday. But I think this was sort of saying, hey, the NFC South still got to roll through New Orleans.
Mike, we'll get back to the Saints. I want to get to the Michael Thomas injury stuff, but let me shift to LSU here for a brief bit. We found out the news this week that Neil Farrell Jr. is opting back in for LSU. How significant for this team?
Well, he was projected to be a starter before he opted out. And that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
And it's a position where I think that you're still looking for the guy. Understanding that those type players at that position are really hard to come by. When you talk about pass rushers. And so Neil certainly adds to the bucket there for them that you had a lot of I don't knows and still got a lot of I don't knows at defensive end. And we're going to find out pretty quick on the pass. I think those guys sort of show up. I think similar to a receiver or running back, I think if you can rush the quarterback, I think it shows up pretty quickly. And so I think that's an added bonus for LSU to get Neil back. He's a good football player. He's a bigger defensive end than some of the guys that are on the roster today. And so his aid and run support certainly there. And he'll work his way up to, the depth chart pretty quickly there. And he's going to see significant playing time. Ed's always talked about having two deep and playing 8 linemen, constantly playing them. And I remember him telling me that, when he was at SC about how he wanted that because so much of the time late in the game that, you're down and you see teams maybe down by 10 and you can't get a pass rush on a quarterback and he starts to pick you apart. You try to play a little bit of coverage, but, he can find that guy. But I think nothing wins games more in the fourth quarter than a pass rush. So when you can get Neal back, that I think that's a big plus for LSU, and certainly to go with the guys that been there now, if it's Andre Anthony or Ali Gay, the two freshmen, and get at it, and let's see how it goes. Because early on, I think the Mississippi State game is going to be an interesting game to play that offense the way they do it, fast pace, throwing the ball downfield. Put Costello on his backside. We'll see just how tough he is.
Mike, what about Tyler Shelvin? Have you heard anything about the possibility of Shelvin opting back in?
I've heard what everybody else has heard, but, my thing is this. I think if he would have opted in, my gut feeling is, wouldn't he have done this by now?
Yep.
I mean, that's just my gut feeling on it. And I'm not saying he's not thinking about it or anything else, and he could. You never know today what's going to happen with players and how they opt in and they opt out. As long as you haven't signed with an agent, that's going to be okay. But again, this is sort of late in the process now.
Yeah.
It's real late in the process. I would love to see him come back because I think the structure for him to be on a football team is good for him. And I understand he's working with a trainer and everything, but man, to be around the guys and to be working every day and you kind of getting pushed by other players, and he's a special talent. And I'm not taking anything away from that. Man, as big as he is, as athletic as that guy is, you don't see that often. I'm much more concerned about his health, his weight, and how that can easily balloon on him. Yeah. And so, I've heard what you guys have heard, but I would think by now if he'd have wanted to come back, I think he'd have been here. I mean, I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. Yeah. I hope he would come back to the LSU football team because I think that helps him. He's not assured of anything early. And everybody's going to question his weight. And they say, well, if he comes back and play, they're going to question his weight. Well, the one thing about it is you can sort of keep yourself in check a little bit better, and you're going to get pushed. And I know his relationship with Coach O was really good before he left.
Hey, Mike, Ed made a comment earlier this week, and I'd love your take on it. He said that, you know what I'm going to say, the defense right now is better than they were at any point a year ago. You know him well, Mike, but I'm looking at a defense that had a couple of first-rounders, a consensus All-American, a freshman All-American that throttled 3 top 10 teams down the stretch. Is it realistic to think the defense right now is better than they were at the stretch last year?
I'd have thought that was a stretch until I think about 2 days before the national championship game and had a conversation with Dave Aranda. And he was I'm going to tell you something. He said, I think the defense that's coming back will be better than the one that we had this year at LSU. And that shocked me even more that he's telling me this. Mm-hmm. So now that's 2 of them saying it. Again, I get where you're coming from because you don't have Tyler. Kerry Vincent opts out. So, that certainly, I think, hurts your defense. But I think it's more philosophy with Ed. I think he wanted them turned loose. That was not what Dave wanted to do. A lot of times they were playing coverage when I think Ed wanted to, hey, go get sick 'em type defense. I think that what he likes is what Bo brings to the table with that. Because I think Bo and Ed are on sort of the same page defensively on philosophy. I'm sure that wasn't always the case with Dave and Ed. And they had a good relationship. And Ed sort of let him do what he wanted to do defensively. But still, I think Ed's philosophy, if it was, no matter where he's been, if it was at Miami or Florida, if it was at SC, the 1 year at Tennessee, even at Ole Miss, it was, man, get after him. Let's get after him. And that wasn't quite the case with Dave. And so, Dave tried to mix and match. And I think sometimes there's an overcomplication of a defense that you almost confusing them. on certain things. And I think we saw that last year, especially early on, that there seemed to be some confusion on certain things. Guys a little bit out of position. And so it doesn't surprise me Ed says it. And listen, I'm telling you, he's very calculated on what he says.
Mm-hmm.
He's very honest about things, but if he tells it to you, he believes it. And I'm just telling you, I've been through a lot of roads with him. I understand how he thinks. He didn't say that because he think it might happen. He thinks he's really got that. But what's interesting is Aranda told me that back in January.
That's Mike. I mean, I don't know how you lose all the players that we could run through and think that you're better, but I am to hear it. I'm excited to see it, man. We'll get a chance a week.
Well, here's my thing too. Yep. In that defense, the defensive line is certainly big, and what they do up front. But man, Bo has always been linebacker oriented too.
And Mike, you lost your top 4 linebackers from last year.
I got it, but listen, where we going with this? I think that's the one thing Bo and Dave have in common.
Okay.
You brought in a 2-time All-American in Jabril Cox. And Ed's made a comment not once, but twice. I heard him 3 times say, a couple times I've left that practice field, and he's the best player on the field.
Yep.
Now, Derek Stingley Jr.'s on that field, too. and
Mike,
you say...
And when he said it, Jamar Chase was still on the field,
Chase was on there, too. Okay, and how he's talked about Damone Clark and sort of telling you, man, this guy is really good, really, really good. But the guy he's talked about more than anybody in length, maybe not talent, but in length, Micah Baskerville. I mean, he sort of went on and on and on a little bit about him as a player. So I think it's interesting that the philosophies of Bo and Aranda are totally different in a lot of ways, but yet it goes right back to that spot at linebacker. And you look back, Clark doesn't have the experience, certainly, but a year ago, what experience Patrick Queen had. He'd started 4 games at LSU. You look at Cox. I mean, he's got a lot of experience. Now, again, he has not played SEC competition, but when you're starting to say he's the best player on that field, and you got Stingley, and you got Chase, and you got a couple other guys that'll go pretty high, that's saying something, and he has really talked it up about Micah.
Yeah.
And so I think that I know it was a big loss. When you lose, 3 or 4 linebackers off your unit, that's a difficult sort of look back and try to reoccupy those spots with players that are similar talent-wise. It goes to show the talent level of LSU. Okay, nope. That Cox could have went anywhere. He comes to LSU. Now, Clark, I think, is the guy with the ceiling. When scouts call me up and say, give me a guy like Patrick Queen a year ago, it's easy for me. Mm-hmm. It's him. It's Clark. You look at him physically, that's not a lot he can't do out on that field, and he's pretty sharp. And Baskerville's made plays on special teams, hasn't seen a tremendous amount of playing time. But, again, I think it's part of LSU and what they've done, and you've seen it throughout the years. If it's been Debo, 1-year starter. Duke Riley, how many years he started at LSU?
1.
Okay, so my thing is Quan Alexander. I think he was maybe a 1.5-year starter. So you got guys that all of a sudden they pop up, man, and they're really good football players. Now, again, not a lot of those guys are from the state of Louisiana, but and I think that's why you've seen efforts by these LSU recruiters to go out of state to get linebackers. Interesting. Despite the fact Debo was from Louisiana, Duke was from Louisiana, Damone's from Louisiana, Micah is, but this maybe wasn't the year they thought in Louisiana you were going to get that great linebacker or 2. And so, man, they spread the tentacles out. So, Matt, if he's telling you that, I think Ed's not telling you that to BS you. Mm-hmm. He's telling you that because he really believes you.
Mike D, let's turn the page to Monday Night Football and get a first look at Saints Raiders. Let me start with Michael Thomas and his uncertainty. I'm going to assume, like many, that Mike Thomas is not going to play. How does that impact New Orleans for Monday Night Football?
Well, just look at the amount of catches he's made since he's entered the league. Listen, you're not as good with Mike. But, you have a football team and a quarterback that's known for his distribution skills, his ability to get the football to numerous people, and not just one guy. So even though Mike has put up historic NFL numbers with this football team, the Saints can get through a stretch with it. And here's the thing about an ankle injury, and talking to Dr. David Elias about this at Arthur LA, he's brought up to me this numerous times that to make sure you take care of it the first time, because if you try to come back too quickly from that ankle injury, it's the second time you hurt it, then you really got issues where you could be out a long period of time. You think about that receiver, his explosiveness, getting off the snap, his ability to get into and out of a cut and a break cleanly and smoothly. All that's affected, and there ain't no medicine for it. That's all I'm telling you, because that medicine go away. It's all medicine, but it all goes away after a while. Man, you feel rotten after you take what you got to take to try to play. So I think the Saints are going to be cautious with Mike. He's a tough guy. I know he'll do everything he can to come back very quickly. I'm like you. I'd be surprised if I saw him Monday. But the one thing with Drew, and thinking about it throughout the years, he's likes people that he's had sort of a little bit of a rapport with, one way or another. And you look at this roster. Okay, this is year 2 with him and Jared Cook. You saw it against the Bucs. He looked at him in a lot of down, distant situation. So he's going to go that spot. Alvin Kamara and his ability to catch the football coming out the backfield. They've worked a lot on that, and that's what Drew does really well. Throw the ball out in the flat, let Alvin one-on-one downfield, and let him roll Taysom Hill. I think his role expands in this even more as a receiver because he's got those skills. He can catch the football really well coming out the backfield. The X factor is Emmanuel Sanders, who was not somebody that Drew sort of looked a lot at early in the game, but you saw late he did. He was trying to pump him the football late in the football game. So you got a lot of options here, and it always sort of circulates in the back of my head the comment Sean has made about Deontay Harris. We got to find a way to get him the ball and have him touch it more than what we have. And I think they would put him on a bit of a pitch count on the amount of catches or carries or whatever. So you've got a lot of different options here. But going back to what Drew has done in the past, okay, he knows where Cook is. Okay, he knows where Kamara is. He's worked a lot with Taysom Hill and has worked this offseason with Emmanuel Sanders before they went to training camp. So I think those 4 guys kind of fit the bill of what they do. And, man, I watched the film of the Raiders. They did get 1 sack on Teddy Bridgewater, but Teddy sat back there and threw the football. They weren't around him at all. Mm-hmm. So, man, if you protect Drew, you're going to have a lot of opportunities. Their linebacking core is beat up with injuries. That doesn't look too hot to me. So I think Drew's got some opportunities here in this football game, even without Michael Thomas in the lineup. Mike, and this is taking nothing away from Mike because he's an unbelievable football player. But I think if it's a couple games, that Sean loves that challenge. We saw it last year. Drew Brees down. Oh, what the Saints are going to do? They won every game.
Yeah. But Mike, I said it yesterday. If you went 5-0 without Drew Brees, you can win in Las Vegas without Michael Thomas. I don't want to make a habit of it, but it's possible. What about the rest?
Yeah, because the other thing, too, is on a short week, he may not just miss that one game because I think you can come back after 3 weeks with an ankle injury. And we don't know the true severity of it, but I was at the Bobby Bowden Award, and Tua was backstage. We got an opportunity to talk to him a little bit, and, he was walking with no limp because of the hip. I asked him how the ankle was, and he said, you know what, it still bothered me 4 weeks. He said it wasn't until week 5 weeks into it, that I could really start to, feel like the same guy. Now, okay, he wasn't complaining about the hip.
Yeah.
he was complaining about the ankle, and that stays with you. Anybody who's got a really bad ankle injury, or now with Richie Pettibone say, Mike, explain to me what a high ankle sprain is. He said, I played all those years in the NFL. I don't know what a high ankle sprain is. And, facetiously, but whatever. Mm-hmm. But he was telling me, he said, I got it one year. He said, look, I don't know what was worse, the ankle injury or the stuff they gave me to try to combat it. Now, that was a different time, different era, and what they were doing to try to help you get along. But he said, man, that was some powerful stuff they were giving me to try to play on it. And he said, yeah, I could play on it. But he said, then the next day, man, you felt like somebody had shot you in the ankle, that you couldn't put any weight on it. And so that I think the Saints are going to be cautious with Mike, despite the fact I think Mike's going to push this to try to play. I would be very cautious with him. Man, I want a healthy Mike Thomas in December and January.
Yeah. Mike, the injury report for today's out. We'll do this quickly, but Thomas did not participate. Ruiz was back but limited. And Marcus Davenport also did not participate today for New Orleans.
That ain't good. That means he ain't playing.
So you think no Marcus Davenport? Then also we saw today Anthony Chickillo signed off the practice squad to Denver. What do you do on the end, Mike?
Well, what you did last week, what did Chickillo do? He's on. Chickillo's a good special teams player, but I never saw anything that he could rush a quarterback with the Steelers, and they gave him every opportunity there. I think you like him because he does have a good edge. He can roll around that tackle real good. The problem with him is his closing to the quarterback, almost like he's got to come to a stop before he can make that turn. The real good ones, man, you watch Cam Jordan, how smooth he is to turn that corner. He doesn't lose much in that transition to get from point A to point B to the signal caller. With Chickillo, there's a little bit of a stop there in between. But he was they love what he could bring to the table as a special teams player. But again, with Cam, you know what you got there. And if he's up against Trent Brown, good gracious, and watching him, Trent got to be 400 pounds. I mean, he was always a big man. He is a mammoth individual. But he's got difficulties getting out of that snap. Now, I don't think he even practiced today. He says he's got a calf injury. So, man, if I'm one of the pass rushers, my hands up, I know he's big, but, man, I've seen him. He's slow to get out of that stance. I want to go up against him because unless he catches me, like a pop fly, I think I got a chance to get around him. So I think they'll put more emphasis on getting Trey Hendrickson a lot more reps. Trey, I thought, played a really strong game last week. Man, Smith for Tampa Bay, he was almost like two-hand touching him.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not going to hit you too hard. I'm just going to try to sway you a little bit. I thought Wirfs did a pretty good job on the right side as a rookie because I'd have went after him. I'd have went to see what he's got to bring to the table. I think he more than held his own. But the veteran Donovan Smith, my Lord, now he's played in this league a long time. To play two-hand touch at this stage goes to show you they don't have a lot of depth on that roster along the offensive line. And I think if there's an Achilles heel for the Bucs, that's where it's at.
All right, final segment with Mike D. Your questions. Let's get right to it as we wrap up here. All right, Mike, we'll start in the Bayou Ford YouTube chat. Matt Plavidals has asked Mike, best newcomer on offense and defense for LSU this year.
Offense is easy.
That's
It's
easy.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
Man, listen, he's going to be something special. And on defense, Jabril Cox.
Yeah.
I mean, that ain't no question. If anybody else, you losing that bet. It's like, hey, listen, Matt, I got to tell you, I should cash in on the Alvin Kamara deal.
Mike,
okay, now listen, I got a couple cats that will never pay me, and I got one guy that has bet me numerous times, and I could go live next to Charlie in Malibu on 2.5 Men with the amount of money he would owe me for it. But I got in right under the wire for it. And the other thing, too, when you looked at that contract when it was all said and done, really, it's a 4-year deal at $50 million.
Yeah.
Exactly the Derrick Henry deal, which we've talked about for 2 months. And so I won't ever collect my money from a couple of them, but I did win it. So
for those wondering, Mike had predicted all along that they would get the deal done with Kamara before the season started. Boy, it was you heard the ticking bomb right there, man, but they got it.
It was like you winning that bet with LSU in 10 games.
Hey, man.
And you had to go 7 overtimes to do it.
Brother, a win's a win. I could flip it around on you and say if Cole Tracy misses the kick at Auburn, then it's done well before. But you know what I mean. It's what it is. But my guy ain't paying up either. Jeff Pizzo says, ask Mike, with the Mike Thomas injury, do we see more of a role for Adam Troutman?
I think as the season goes along, you're going to see Adam incorporated more in their offense. Adam sort of reminds me a little bit of Jimmy Graham. Athletically, Jimmy was a better player, I think, football-wise. Adam knows a lot more about football at this stage than what Jimmy did coming in, because Jimmy was a basketball player. But I think as the season goes along, you're going to see a lot more of Adam Troutman. Man, he gets it, and he's a big target receiver. I think there has to be a little bit of rapport between him and Drew, and he may see some playing time. But I think as the season goes along, that's when you're going to see a lot more of Adam Troutman.
Couple of more. Let's jump on email. Warren asked Mike, will Zach Bond play on Monday night? We didn't see. Did Zach play against
Nope.
against Tampa?
Nope.
Okay.
No, he was inactive. So I think that they would like to get him in the lineup. And here's the thing, that I think you will see him early play. I know Ryan Nielsen pretty well as a designated pass rusher, because I think that early on, what you want to do is to get in Derek Carr's face and sort of knock him around a little bit. You don't want him to sit back there and just throw it around. I think the Saints are going to be pretty aggressive after Carr, because I don't think he's the straw that turns the drink in Las Vegas. I think that's Josh Jacobs. You got to stop him first. But knock Derek Carr around a little bit, because he seems to get flustered a little bit if that pressure's on him. That's one thing the Panthers didn't do. They didn't get after him early on. But if you go back to his past, if you get pressure on him, knock him around, then he's a little bit squeamish.
Ask Mike, Will on Twitter, ask Mike, we're inside of a minute, do the Saints have the best nickel personnel in the NFL?
You can make that argument.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. I've never seen a better secondary in a Saints uniform than what they have now. And with PJ, hopefully, when he can come back, that gives him another cog there. And DJ Swearinger's a good player. Now, he's an enforcer.
Yeah.
You got to kind of watch it. He's sort of borderline in the way they call things today. But, man, they've got a really good secondary lined up. Now, they sort of thin at corner. But other than that, this is a football team that's got really good talent in the secondary. And I could have never said that in the past.
10 seconds, Mike. Do the Saints win on Monday night?
They win, and win easy. I think it's a 34-17 type game.
He's Mike Detillier. This is After Further Review. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, bud.
We'll chat again next week. Mike's with us every single Thursday. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.